Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. We're here today on our 200th episode, and we're celebrating that after a 4-2 defeat, which is classic Derby. But yeah, 200 episodes at Rams Talk, and we're very, very grateful for all the support that's enabled us to get this far. Yeah, as you know, Derby 4-2 defeat at Blackburn probably wasn't the ideal result, probably wasn't the ideal performance either. But, in the end, what matters is we're all happy. We're back in the championship, and surely we can win some games further down the line. So joining me today to dissect Derby's defeat, we've firstly got Callum Boocock. How are you, Cal?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Finally got some sleep after that torturous long journey to Blackburn that we did together, mate. Yeah, all good, mate. All good.
Yeah, two of our friends live in Sheffield, and then they decided to tell us very late on that they couldn't actually get any trains back from anywhere on our route. So we had to drive all the way to Sheffield and then all the way back to Derby, which was a lovely drive, as you can probably imagine. We've also got Vic Singh. How are you, Vic?
I'm all good. Yeah, I think digested Friday. I mean, it was even better watching Plymouth earlier, so it's given me a bit of hope that there's at least one worse team than us in this league. But yeah, all good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We've also got Adam Titley. How are you, pal?
Roasting right now. Absolutely sweating, and looking forward to talking about that first game of the season. Yeah,
you sound it, mate. You sound
I'm buzzing.
riveted.
Can't wait.
Good stuff. I mean, there's nowhere else we can start other than the goals we conceded. We were having a chat earlier, weren't we, about basically how Derby shaped up. We shaped up in a back four. Obviously, towards the end of last season, we played with a back five. And we defended, I thought, like we had a back five a lot of the time. I mean, I watched the goals back. I suffered through them this morning, and watching them, we just tended to overcommit. We'd always have one defender that was too far forwards, maybe two defenders, and we just got picked off on the counter attack by a team that were dangerous, really, really dangerous in Blackburn. So, Cal, what's your assessment on Derby's defence, and where could we probably improve?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a great viewing for large portions of it, but it was parts of it were down to our own doing. I mean, we seem to be stepping out and committing ourselves way too easily. One of the goals we had, I think, one defender in the box, and they had three waiting in the back post for a cutback. And you can't be doing that at this level. I mean, we got away with it in stages last season in League One, and the lucky thing that you get is that in League One teams, they might only score one goal from maybe 6 or 7 chances, whereas in the Championship, they're going to punish you. And at the end of the day, they punished us. They're bringing on players like Schmodix and Andy Varman who aren't going to miss chances like they did if we give it to them. And there was parts of it that I was really, really happy with. There was a portion of the game we were on top of them. We got back into the game, and then we could have gone on from there and won it. But as you say, we just let them back into it by our own doing. And whether that's, like you say, with regards to defenders being in the wrong positions, I don't know. I think the fullbacks were not too high, but because they were committing themselves so high, the centre halves and Ozo then didn't know where they had to fill in the gaps, and that meant that the centre mids then pulled out into fullback positions, which we will discuss when we were there, and that just left a gaping hole down the middle, which they broke through, and then it was just like a matter of time before that. I mean, you can't concede after scoring an equaliser 2 goals within 4 minutes. Like, you can't do that at this level because you just get found out. And obviously that was the difference between the two teams. So yeah, it wasn't a great viewing, but it's game 1 and we've got another plentiful more to go.
Thank you for going through every talking point we have, Cal, in the space of 4 minutes.
Mate.
But
that
was good. I'm going to stop telling you these before we do this, so you can't keep bringing it up. Vic, I mean, like Cal's alluded to there, there were the times when the fullbacks stepped up. I thought Callum Elder, especially, I've seen a lot of praise for him, and I think going forwards, he did do some good things when he actually went forwards, which I think he needed a little bit of a push to do. But defensively, we just looked all over the place on the counter attack. I mean, we're diving in, we're throwing ourselves into things. I mean, if you look at a couple of the goals, they come from, well, almost all the goals came down our left-hand side, which I don't think was a massive surprise, with a completely unmarked player on the right-hand side. It's just baffling, isn't it, when you look at the Derby team of last year, how solid we were at the back, how few goals we conceded. Is it just the fact that we're coming up against better players, or did we just not turn up?
It could be a mixture of a lot of things. I think for me, I think it was just first match nerves. I think we knew we're back in the championship. We knew that there was going to be another level to this, and I think some of the players just looked a bit nervous, in my opinion. And like defensively, like you said, we were all over the shop. Um, Again, we had gaping holes in midfield. We gave I think we gave too much respect to Blackburn in the end. I think, in terms of we sort of let them come onto us, and we thought we could probably hit them on the counter. We realised that this is the championship now; it's a step above, and maybe we were still stuck in that League One mode in terms of how we shape up defensively. We'll learn a lot from it. Like we said, it's game one out of 46. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we'll learn a lot from it. But there's plenty to work on. Hopefully, maybe we can get a few signings in. Hopefully, we can get on that training ground and sort of maybe use Chesterfield as a bit of not like a training game as such, but to try new things. See if we can right the wrongs this Friday in preparation for when we play Middlesbrough. So hopefully we can right the wrongs. But again, I'm not too concerned at this moment in time because there's plenty more games to come.
Yeah, there are, and I think that's important to note. I mean, I put something out straight after the game about, last season we played Wigan first game of the season at home, and they battered us. And then on the Tuesday we played Blackpool at home, and they battered us. And then the weekend after we played Oxford at home, and they battered us. And we looked horrendous for a good portion of the start of last season. Paul Warne's always said his teams take a little while to get going, and then just before Christmas they kick into gear. I mean, Adam, obviously you see on social media people lose their heads immediately the second we lose a game, especially conceding 4 goals in the manner that we did. Do you think it's just us being too early in the season? Like Vic said, we're just sort of going up the gears. We need to understand championship football again.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Vic said pretty much wholly, really. And I think just to add a little bit on, I think towards the end of that game, I think we sort of played the occasion a little bit more than what we should have. I think it's a surprise we did that, knowing how, defensively solid a Paul Warne side can be. But we seemed to go for the game, which I can understand. At 2-1 down, we did, but it just made us even more open. I think it is a case of it was just that opening day. There was definitely some positives in that performance for sure, and I think it was that opening day. I think a couple of players, like Vic said, were nervous in that first half, especially. I think we also lacked a little bit of belief going forward. And then when, like you said, Jake, when we sat back and let Blackburn come on to us, they punished us because they're a championship team who are experienced in the championship. And I think also to add, their new signings hit the ground running, didn't they? Superbly. And it was one of them where, on another day, if they put in a 5 or 6 out of 10 performance, their new signings, then maybe we'd be coming away from the game, not necessarily with 3 points or anything like that, but a bit of a tighter scoreline or maybe even a draw. But it's one of them. One team's players hit the ground running and a smart tactical change, but hopefully we'll become a little bit more tactically smart, because I think we were good at that last season, making changes at the right time. I think one that sticks out to me is probably Oxford away, the substitutions there against a good side. I think, for me, I think we played the occasion a tiny bit. And I think I got caught up in it as well. I thought, go for the game, try and get something. It was the opening day. I think we were all excited. I think a couple of players for me stepped up to that championship level. I think Mendes Lang, I thought he looked dangerous when he came forward. It didn't look like it phased him playing in a division above. I thought Cashin really went for every challenge. I know he got caught out a couple of times and he was part of that back four, which shipped 4 goals. But I thought he tried to step it up a level. But there was a couple of players in there who, for me, looked nervous in that first half that they'd made the step up, and just needs to be a bit of added calmness in that side. But opening day, things will go wrong, things will go right. I don't think you can judge too much off it. Most sides are usually completely different from the opening day. When you look at the end of the season, hopefully it's the same for us, because if the opening day is the same as the end of the season, I don't think we're going to be too happy.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it carries on like this, I dread to think what would happen. But I mean, we've brought it up, so I might as well do it now. We're going to try something a little bit different here. For people, the audio viewers, as Callum would call you, I'm going to explain this as best I can. But basically, we've done a little bit of a piece on Derby's possession and how they built up from the back, because we did this every single time we got the ball. And it was very similar to what we did last season. But I think this is probably the reason why we struggled. We didn't really seem to hit teams on the counter-attack. What happened was, as was mentioned earlier, we tend to have the 2 centre-backs sort of sat in the middle, You'd then have Ben Osborne and Kenzo Haldmine. You'd sort of drop into, I guess, auxiliary fullback positions with Ozo sat in the middle. You'd have Elder pushed really high and wide on the left, Wilson pushed really high and wide on the right, and then you'd have both wingers sat really high and wide as well, with Jackson just on his own in the middle. The problem with this, and this is a problem we found last year, and we kept having Conor Hourihane in this position. He got a lot of stick for it because there's not many passes you can do. From this position, Osborne tried 4 different passes, and 2 of them went really well. You know, he tried to play Callum Elder, and he played Callum Elder, and we'll get onto that a little bit later on. Or he has to play the diagonal over to Barkhuizen. The problem is that a lot of the time he has to go to Cashin or Ozo, and Ozo's got 2 men on him. Cashin's got a man on him, and we just ended up playing backwards, sideways, and that's how we ended up getting stuck. And the biggest problem is, which you'll see here, that space. Now, what we saw Blackburn do really well, and they did it for their first goal, their striker dropped deep, and they played the ball into his feet, and he played it round the corner. And we don't have anyone in the midfield that's doing that. Clearly, they're being told tactically to sit back in those defensive positions and pick up the ball and try and find width. But at the same time, it just leaves us wide open. And you can see Jackson on his own. I actually felt sorry for him because there were a lot of the time he just couldn't get the ball. He couldn't get anywhere near the ball. So in this situation, Osborne ended up playing it over to Elder, who was on the left. So the team's advancing forwards. Again, we've still got that gaping hole in the middle because we've got no one playing in attacking midfield. And all of a sudden, Elder, again, is in a bad position because he can either play the ball to Mendes Lang, who's right in front of him. He can either play the ball back to Cashin, which again is a negative move, and we go sideways again, or he could try an ambitious ball over the top to Jackson. And by playing the way that we're playing, we end up basically forcing it down the line and always giving the ball to players that have their back to them. And there was a couple of times where Mendes Lang did a little dummy and went down the line, which, like Adam said, I think he looked really sharp by doing that. But at the same time, it was a situation where we have to create some sort of magic from one of our fullbacks or wingers. Otherwise, we're not going to get out. And we saw a couple of times where Haldmine was in that position. He lost the ball and we almost conceded. And even Ozo, for his mistake, I think it was for the 3rd goal, he tried to sort of fizz a pass into the middle through the lines and it just wasn't on. And we ended up conceding from it. So, yeah, like you can see there, there's a gaping hole in the middle. We still don't have an attacking midfielder. The ball then comes to Mendes Lang on the left, and all of a sudden we're in a similar position again. We've got Callum Elder still on the left-hand side. Mendes Lang's wide on the left. Osborne's made his way forward and is on the edge of the box. Haldmine's on the edge of the box. Barkhuizen's on the edge of the box. Wilson's on the edge of the box. And only Jackson's in the box. And we saw a few times, you know, Adam, I don't know if you mentioned it before we were recording or when we were recording, some of the balls were really, really good from Callum Elder. The problem was there's no one there. The only person that was in the box is Caden Jackson. And I think he's probably the first one to say he's a wide player. He's not great in the air. He's not going to score loads of headers in the box. So we ended up getting into this position over and over again. And the only thing we could do is hope that it was put out for a throw in or a corner. And because of that, we ended up in a position where over and over and over and over and over again, we were trying to do the same thing. And at times it worked, but this is why Derby haven't scored from open play, because the way we build up from the back, we don't actually give ourselves an option to do anything other than cross it in. And that's kind of where we are. So, Callum, I guess my question for you is, you know, when it comes to Derby's shape, we kind of saw it last year, the Derby circle, didn't we? Where everyone's in a big circle. We've got no midfield. Do you think it's something we'll carry on doing, or is it just us lacking the players to do anything else?
Well, it's something that Warren is persisting with because, as we said, we saw a lot of it last season. We were saying as we were watching it, you kind of then, as you said, putting yourselves into small pockets to create something, which you're only closing the gaps yourselves. The pockets of space we're trying to play in is no more than 15, 20 yards, which, I'm not being funny, is so small to try and create anything out of it. And you're asking, as I say, Haldmine or Osborne to try and break that first press themselves and then drive anything forward, or like you say, a Mendes Lang to do a dummy or do something special, but in a pocket no bigger than the room I'm in. Which, when you're asking someone to do that, you're then going to limit the chances that you're all doing. And the thing that we saw Blackburn do was use the space that they utilised, and the amount of times that we, as I say, had 4 or 5 players around 15, 20 yards, whereas they were spreading the ball left, right, and centre. And that's the difference. And do I think it's going to persist? Yes. But I think we're going to have different players in the positions that we saw on Friday. I think Caden Jackson is better out wide. We're going to have a Jerry Yates or someone else down the middle. They're going to stay in the box. We need one of the three midfielders to join him, because having three midfielders, for one of them, you need one of them to be a forward pressing one. You can't have three of them on the edge of the box. So, yeah, I see it persisting, but hopefully with different personnel, it might obviously give a different result.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Vic, we've seen a lot of teams. I've watched a lot of championship football over this weekend, and every single team does the same thing. They have players that find, like Callum said, those spaces, those pockets of space, and do something with it. Their number 10, I thought, was fantastic. And every time he got the ball, he gave Ozo a torrid time in the first half. He just ran him ragged. He just couldn't get near him. And we don't really do that. We've got players that probably could do that. I think Howdmine showed that when he did pick up the ball, a lot of the time he played a lovely ball over the top, I think, to Jackson at one point, and he's got the magic to play in those little spaces. But the problem is that we don't seem to play that way. Can you think of why?
Again, we probably look at Paul Warren's tactics. I think even last season in League One, we didn't really play through the middle, and I think we're seeing that against Blackburn as well. A second reason might be that, don't forget, this is a new midfield three. They're probably still trying to get used to each other compared to last season, where obviously we had Hora and we had been here a couple of years, got used to each other, knew how each other played. We've got now Howdmine, Ozo. We've got Osborne playing in there, who for me doesn't really look that comfortable there. I think we've seen him drift out wide quite a few times against Blackburn, and maybe we'll see him at left wing back at some point in the season. But there's a number of factors there. I think we've got the quality to do it. I just think we need the time to gel. It's unfortunate that we've had to bring in that midfield, especially so late on in the pre-season. It's probably a factor of maybe needing to gel, and then hopefully we can sort of progress from there. Like you said, we've got the players to do it. It's just, I think we need to get the first 5-6 games out of the way and see where we go from there. But yeah, I'm positive we can do it, but we need to do it soon, just because I think the longer we leave it, if we still got these holes in midfield, we could ship 4 or 5 goals a game, and that's when you're going to start to worry. But like I said, the quality is there. It's just a case of maybe gelling and trying to get it up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's it. And Adam, I mean, looking at the midfield, we saw the graphic just there where you had Howdmine, you had Osborne dropping into those spaces. You had, your fullbacks dropping or pushing really high, really wide. And Derby got caught out. And I think Kane Wilson and Callum Elder were out of position for 3 of the 4 goals because they'd pushed wide into those positions. We'd obviously tried to play the ball through the middle. The magic wasn't quite there from the 2 central midfielders. And we get hit on the break. We're light at the back, and it's a 4v3 or a 3v2. And we end up conceding. I mean, when you look at it like that, it seems, well, written in the stars that we should be playing a back 5, and we want to be playing a back 5, and we're playing the system for a back 5. Do you think we go to a back 5?
It's a difficult one, because I think on 2 sides of it, like Paul Warren said, 4-3-3 is probably the best formation suited to the players that he's got, and it's definitely because of that midfield 3, I think. And I agree with him. I think we've got some really technically gifted players this season in that midfield 3. But then the players that are already here, especially the defence, are so used to playing that back 5, then for large parts of the game against Blackburn, they reverted straight back to it. So I think it's difficult to say, really. I think probably we should try it against Chesterfield. If we perform well there, then use that as a bit of a confidence springboard into the Middlesbrough game, which is going to be incredibly tough. But if we play Chesterfield and look like we're lacking in creative ideas, then I think revert back to the 4-3-3 and wait for the team to gel, because I like the 4-3-3. It's probably one of my favourite formations. I just think like Vic said, we're waiting for the players to gel together. I think like I mentioned earlier, we're lacking that belief up top. I think Jackson, like we said, struggled to get onto the ball, and when he did, I think he was hesitant to shoot at times. And I know we're not a side that ping shots from 30-35 yards out and hopes they fly in. I think we saw that rarely last season. But I'd like to see maybe we test the keeper a bit more when outside the box and it's not going our way, because I think I'd rather we take a gamble than play it safe and nothing comes from it. So I think in terms of the formation, I think revert to it against Chesterfield. No doubt we'll change players around just for fitness and in case of injuries. I know we've not got the biggest squad this season, but I think we definitely should give Bradley a run out against Chesterfield. I know it's me saying that. Obviously, Jim's commented that he thinks Cashin should be dropped, and I think that's probably fair. I mean, Cashin played a lot over this summer now in every friendly, and he struggled at times. So give him a bit of a rest, and put Bradley in, see how he performs. Also, bring Niambi back in for some match fitness, because I think he plays well in that back three in the right centre back position, and that will probably give players like Wilson, if they do start at the wing back position, they're able to go forward more. I don't think Elder would probably start in that left wing back position. I know he kept wanting to go forward, but defensively, he's carried on his form defensively from last season. If I'm going to be honest, there's not been much of an improvement based off Friday night. So I definitely think revert to that 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs, and see how we fare against Chesterfield, who are a good side 2 divisions below us, and see what it comes off. Because if it doesn't work, we've not lost too much. It's the first round of the cup, isn't it? Rather try it there than against Middlesbrough and ship another 4 goals. So I think try it, give it a go, and see what happens, because the reward's higher than the risk for me.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, the comment about Bradley for Cashin, all 4 goals came from them running behind us, and Bradley is our slowest centre back. It wasn't like they were, pinging balls into the box and Cashin was losing headers. I think Sonny Bradley would, possibly be the worst choice we could have picked, because he's the slowest. Nothing ability-wise, he's quite literally the slowest defender we have. So, and that's why he's probably not going to play as much this season against teams that are quick. You got Andy Vyman running in behind him. He's not going to catch him. He's not going to get anywhere near him. So, I think that's why Paul Warren wants a centre back. There's obviously one that's been linked to us today, and we'll get onto that a little bit later on. But I to be honest, can see us going back to a back 3 for the simple reason that the extra player that we'd be taking out is Tom Barkhuizen. And I thought he had quite a bizarre game. I think he looked really low on confidence, looked really low on belief. He didn't look like I'm not going to say he didn't look like he wanted to be there, but Warren's mention after the game, he said he didn't come off with injury, he came off with cramp, and Warren called it shameful, which I thought was quite an interesting comment. That he'd be saying about one of his players in the first game. I mean, we've thought this entire time, Callum, that Warren and Barkhuizen haven't necessarily got on. I don't think we've really ever played a system that suits him. I don't know what system does suit him, I'll be real. And that isn't a shot at him. I just don't think we've ever seen him played in a position where he can thrive. I mean, we're talking about incomings. I think there's going to be some outgoings, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of them. Can you see him going? Can you see anyone else going?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it offline. I think there's a few players who Warren inherited that probably will see the back end of, whether that's this season or this transfer window. I'm not too sure. I think there definitely will be. Barkhuizen probably will be on that list of possibilities. I think to have a comment like that made after, as you say, the first game, it doesn't tell well. And like you say, he just seemed to be like in a weird position. He kind of was playing a 10, but then also went out wide, kind of didn't really, it was almost like in a floaty role, which sometimes can suit, but not when you're away from home in the first game of the Championship. I mean, it might suit in League One, then you can get away with losing a player in that hole, but we needed someone who stuck to their position and just did a job, and Barkhuizen hasn't done that. So I think he will be looking on the way. I think there's a couple of other names you might see, as say one of the central mids, like a Forner or someone going out. It depends on who we bring in, because we're 1 or 2 injuries away. Like if in Ibu Adams, for instance, I mean, he pulled up right at the very end. If he's out for a couple of weeks, then you need in a central mid to fill in. Obviously, Thompson's there, but like you say, you're 1 or 2 injuries in certain positions from being really, really short. So, and the big one that you and Adam have just spoken about, all depends on what formation we go to, because we have 2 or 3 wingers that, I mean, Mendes Lang's one of them. If we play him down the middle in a 3-5-2, we ain't going to get the best out of him. So again, that'll dictate it. It's going to be a weird couple of weeks because it will probably dictate how the rest of the season goes and which way Warren goes with the signings, but also with the formation.
Well, we won't get the best out of Mendes Lang there, apparently, but he played there all of last season, had the best season of his career.
No, I think no. If he drifted out wide, though, he does naturally drift out wide. When we stick him down the middle in a 10 or in a striking position, for me, he always seems to naturally want to drift because he's a winger. That is his natural position, and he says that. He said that after one of the post-match interviews himself. So that's what we bought him in for. Well, Rossini bought him in for, was to be a winger. Whereas if one wants to play him, at the end of the day, he's one of our best attacking outlets. We've got to get him on the pitch. It's just where you put him.
Yeah, no, I agree, Cal. I was just trying to annoy you, to be honest. But I mean,
probably did.
But I mean, when we look at, let's talk about something good, right? We spent 25 minutes talking about how rubbish we are in certain positions, but let's talk about the good. And Mendes Lang was a big part of that. 2 assists. He got the FOTMOB man of the match. It means absolutely nothing, but he got, pretty decent rating, had a pretty decent game. He put in 2 wonderful balls, one off the head of Curtis Nelson, which sparked incredible celebrations, one off the head of Kane Wilson that everyone sort of went, yay, towards the end. But Vic, let's look at that first goal because it's a really well-worked corner routine. We're good at those. I mean, Blackburn, as someone said in the comments, that Blackburn are historically pretty bad from set pieces, but I don't think many teams would have defended that. Really lovely ball to the far post. Curtis Nelson rises above his marker, cannons a header. Scenes in the Derby end. It was genuine chaos as well. It was some fantastic limbs, as you'd call it. I mean, it was good, wasn't it, Vic? And it shows that we do have the ability to come from behind. I think it was important that we showed a bit of character. Yes, we went on to lose the game with a bit of madness, but we showed the character to come back after Blackburn had dominated us. We got ourselves back in the game and ended up getting a really well-worked goal.
Yeah, I mean, if we look back at what we probably bought from last season, it's that never giving attitude. I think we still carried on going all the way through and got the equaliser. The only thing that disappointed me was the fact that we actually sat back after the equaliser, which was a shame. But like you said, it was another set-piece goal. We seem to be the set-piece kings, which at Derby for many, many years, we've never been good at them. So it's nice to see we can actually put the ball in the box and score goals. Like I said, NML had a really good game. I thought Hardmine had a few decent touches, passes, everything like that. He's really sort of settling in well into the side. I thought Ozo, when he charged forward, I thought looked much better. I think maybe if we could start maybe playing him further forward and try and get a Fitty Adams to sit in front of that back line, might see a bit of a difference and a bit of balance in that midfield. But there was definitely some positives to take from Blackburn. Like we said, we got 2 set-piece goals. Like I said, in my opinion, I thought Friday wasn't one of them games where we deserved to lose 4-2. It was just defensive mistakes. I thought maybe there's 1 goal in it either way. But like I said, it's positives to build on. We know that we can score off set pieces. We know we're a threat with our centre-backs going forward. And it's just something to build on. So, yeah, it's nice to have something positive to build on in terms of our attacking play. Just need to sort out the defensive perk of it.
Well, that's it. And again, we mentioned earlier, didn't we? The Blackpool game especially sticks out to me. That in the EFL Cup, I think there was a time when in the first half we stopped trying. We actually sat back and just let Blackpool pass the ball around in the first half because we were so poor and looked so out of it. It was horrendous. And that was the point where I was like, oh my God, we're terrible. Whereas I don't think against Blackburn, I don't think there were many moments like that. Yeah, the defending was a little bit questionable at times, but overall, I think we probably, I wouldn't say we matched them for 90 minutes, but there were vast parts of the game where we did actually probably outperform them. We kept the ball well. We worked it down the line. We created chances. I think Mendes Lang was unlucky with his corner shot that nearly crept in at the near post. Whoever was at the near post, I think we'll probably get a bit of a telling off from the Blackburn staff because he went wandering off and Mendes Lang was so unlucky not to score. But I mean, Adam, we've talked about it. Derby are so dangerous from set pieces. They're going to be really important for us again, aren't they, this season? Because other than, 1 or 2 sort of flashes where we got the ball towards the edge of the box, they were the only times we really looked that dangerous.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to sort of I'm trying to think the right word to describe it, but the style of play probably that we have, which is get it wide and cross it in. Yeah, get the ball into the box, and that probably suits well. The short corner worked well as well, just to create some more space in that box. And when you think about it, I'm probably going to talk about Jerry Yates. When you look at his highlights and his goals previously, mainly at Blackpool, when he hit that great form, he was quite a unique striker in the fact that he liked to run onto balls and take defenders on, but also he scored quite a lot from headers and sort of being in the right place and the right time to tap goals in, and to have that sort of pace as a forward, hopefully can match the pace of Mendes lying out wide and be in that box. You mentioned about Callum Elders, sort of some of his positive balls into the box. I expect Jerry Yates to be in those positions to put the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, he won't feature until another 2 matches' time. But in terms of the set pieces, I think it's a really useful asset of our play. Something that, as a newly promoted side, if you can rely on set pieces for a couple of goals a season, it's going to be huge for us, especially late on in games against sort of the top 6 sides in the division, when we might be 1 goal in it. And, if we get a corner, there could be some optimism. I've not been Sonny Bradley's biggest fan, but he's definitely dangerous from set pieces. We saw it at the back end of last season. He was crucial with some goals. Obviously, Barnsley away, he popped up with a header from a corner, I think it was. But yeah, if he could control his aggression in games late on, not a repeat of Northampton away, then I think it could be a really
Shrewsbury as well.
Yeah, and I think he could be a really useful addition in the Championship. I know he's not the quickest of defenders, but if he is going to sit on the bench a bit more than bringing him on late in games like we did last season, will hopefully be an addition. And as long as we keep that set piece record throughout the season, I think we'll see a few late goals and hopefully a few late gained couple of points this season. That could make all the difference over the sides in the bottom 3, and hopefully doesn't just mean that we score a few consolation goals at the end of games and come away with nothing. But yeah, it's a really big asset tactically for a newly promoted side to be good at set pieces.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things we mentioned towards the start of the episode was to do with the players brought off the bench. They brought on Andy Vyman, obviously ex-Derby, was a Derby player, and probably our sort of best time. I mean, it wasn't great looking back, was it? But our best time, we're pushing for the playoffs every year, pushing towards the top of the league. And he went to Bristol City, scored loads of goals. Obviously, went to the Euros as well. And they brought on Sammy Smodics, who, top goal scorer in the league last year, looking to go for upwards of 10 million. And they brought those 2 off the bench, and all we had was poor James Collins, who was expected to come on and work miracles. I mean, don't get me wrong, he actually did pretty well in the build-up to our goal, helping to win that corner. But Collins can't be our only option on the bench. I know we've got a couple of injuries, but we're seriously lacking in depth. I mean, Cal, if we were going to improve in a few positions, I mean, which positions are you gonna choose for a little bit of depth?
Oh God, where do I start? You've got, I mean, the number 9 is the biggest one. I think at the end of the day, we can't go into it with Collins and Yates just as the 2 natural strikers at the moment. We're forcing Jackson to play there, and he's clearly not a number 9. We knew that when we signed him. Even Ipswich fans said if you're playing down the middle, you're not going to get the same output out of him as you would if you play him out wide. So I think we're just having to do that at the moment because we haven't got any other options for the pressing game that Paul wants to do. So I definitely do a number 9. I think if we're looking at offloading maybe a Fauna or anyone like that, you probably need another central midfielder, probably a more creative one who's more forward thinking, because we need someone who also gets in the box and helps the striker out. We can't just have, as your display showed earlier, that we have no one in the box other than one striker, and that you're not going to score many goals like that, or your crosses are going to be so pinpoint that to get any goals out of that. And then you're probably looking at a wing back, probably on the left-hand side, because again, Elder is okay, but he's shown that he does have some games in him that aren't up to standard. So we need probably someone over there. Whether an Osborne could go over there, we've all spoken about that over the last few weeks. It looks like Osborne's going to be in the central midfielder position. So if that is the case, then I think we need a fullback. And then the obvious one's a goalkeeper, but hopefully that's sorted in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. God, Zetterstrom, please, I am begging you, please sign.
You've got an episode waiting.
Yeah, it's been. Honestly, I recorded it weeks ago. I'm just chilling on it. I mean, yeah, we know where we need to improve, don't we? We really do know where we need to improve. I mean, I think it says a lot that Elder that couldn't get in our team last year is now starting. Vickers that couldn't get in our team's now starting. You know, Collins, I mean, at the start of last season, we were saying, is he good enough for League One? And now he's looking like our best number 9. Obviously, we've not seen enough for Jerry Yates yet, but he's looking like our first choice number 9 at the minute because Caden Jackson's not a striker. So we do have some certain areas that need sort of G'ing up a little bit. But I mean, we've been linked with 2 players today. We're in a battle with a few teams for them. We'll get on to our striker option that we've had a couple of comments about already. But we're going to start off with Brendan Sarpong Waidu, who he plays for Fleetwood. Obviously got relegated with Fleetwood last year. When I saw that, alarm bells immediately rang. But after doing a little bit of research, he actually looks like a really good player. He's only 24. He's actually got a really high average rating as well, including over a 7 in the year that they went down. He looks quick. He can play in midfield as well as a holding midfielder if required. And he just seems like a really good on-the-floor defender. I'll tell you who he reminded me of, Fikayo Tomori, with the way that he moved, his recovery runs, and just watching a few clips of him earlier. I mean, Vic, Warren said he wanted a quick centre-back. Obviously, we'd be getting one. I know he's from League 2. He's not played at this level before, but if you can sort of add a little bit of pace to our back line, maybe if we are going into a back 5, that's the perfect sort of right or left centre-back for us, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it'd be a shame for us to sort of judge a player before they even join us just because they play in League 2. There's obviously something that the recruitment staff and Paul Warren would have seen in him. So if it is that he's got that attribute of being a quick, pacey centre-back that Paul Warren needs, let's go for it. I can't imagine he'll cost too much in a transfer fee. For me, it'd probably be a no-lose situation because it won't be that expensive. If he does flop, we won't really be missing out. He's 24 years old. If one of his main attributes is pace, he can play in the midfield. Again, it adds a bit of depth into that squad. It shows that he can be versatile. So, admittedly, I don't know too much about him, but from what you've said already and from what Fleetwood fans are saying, it sounds promising. Again, for me, it's a no-lose situation. If it means that we're going to spend a couple $100,000 on him to bring him in, why not? And just judging by the teams that are also linked with him as well as us, there must be something in this player for him to catch the eye of Championship clubs. He's ready to make that step up. Hopefully, we can win the race and get him in and add a much-needed injection of pace into that centre-back line.
Yeah, you can choose to play in front of 30,000 and thousands of travelling away fans, or a ground with 3 stands. So hopefully he makes the right choice. Goes to
Easy
us.
pick.
Yeah, because my God, do we need a player like that? We've got a comment as well asking for a shout out for Joe McCabe, who listens from Australia as well, which is cool. So shout out to you, Joe. We've also got a comment from Jim saying, bring back Curtis Davis and David McGoldrick. They'd certainly bring that pace that we were missing at the back and up front. It'd be funny. And Adam, we're also linked with another player. It's Cauley Woodrow.
Cauley Woodrow, Adam. That's the one.
I think Jake was about to say we're linked with Cauley Woodrow. And what's my thoughts on that? I think for me, Woodrow has had some good seasons with Burton Albion. When they were in the Championship, I think he scored around 13, around that, sort of in between 10 and 20 goals there. He's not been a 20-goal season, a striker. I don't think he's ever had that just because of the amount of starts he gets inside. So obviously, he came through at Fulham. I remember him most scoring goals against me on Football Manager. If anybody else had that problem, then you'll know what I mean. He was very clinical on that game. But if he was to come to Derby, I know he's got not too many starts in him for Luton where he's been. I think he was one of them players Luton brought in just before they went up to the Premiership and signed quite a few very decent top of the table Championship players, which meant he couldn't really get into the side, especially with the strikers they've got at the moment. So I think it could be a good move for him and a good move for us based off how clinical he's been in the past. It reminds me of sort of the Jerry Yates signing, in the fact that Jerry Yates has had some really, really high scoring seasons in previous years, but just maybe hasn't worked out for him for the club that he's at. And I think it's one of them gambles that we're taking this season. I think that's definitely the recruitment strategy, it seems, from my perspective as a fan. It's one of them where you're looking at players who still have age on their side, still got quite a few years left in their career, but have had some promising starts at some other clubs, and maybe it's just petered out a little bit at the club that they're at. So I think he'd be an addition that I'm not sure whether we bring him on loan or on a permanent. That would be hopefully financially viable for the club. Either way, and I wouldn't expect his wages to be too high either, based off the fact that he signed for Luton before they went up to the Premiership. So could be an interesting signing. I'm not too sure that we need another injection in the striker department. For me personally, I think we've got Jerry Yates and Caden Jackson now. I think will come good. I know we obviously had trouble last season with Collins getting injured. We had to bring in Dwight Gale, but for me, I think Jerry Yates is going to be a decent goal scorer, and Caden Jackson's just a couple of games away from getting that first goal, and hopefully he's off and away. For me personally, like we mentioned, the goalkeeper department and left back, for me, they're the priority. But if we need to bring in another striker, and Paul Warne believes that, then he's the man in the manager's role. He knows best for me. And I think Corley Woodrow's a decent option at this level. But I think it's another one of them gambles that, if he does come in, sort of has to come off. Or we sat with a lot of players that are a gamble, and if they don't come together, then we could really struggle.
This is why you don't listen to football YouTubers when they talk about football, when you see them on Sky Sports, because I think that might be the hottest take, that Derby don't need another striker.
Not as our first choice transfers, man. I think for me, goalkeeper and left back, and then we can think about. But if you need to bring it in now, bring a player in now.
No, that's true. I don't know what happened there, by the way. I was just talking and Chrome closed. Yeah. I was like, oh, guess I'm gone then.
You didn't want to hear what I had to say.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in Adam talking about how much he doesn't want a striker. Worth mentioning, I had some stats lined up before I was viciously kicked out of the studio. He scored 13 goals and 15 goals for Barnsley before he went to Luton. So he's got a decent scoring record. It just didn't quite work out for him at Luton. So again, the same as Jerry Yates at Swansea. I think, like you said, Adam, I think he'd probably be a decent option. And I think he does know where the back of the net is, which I think is something that we desperately need. Another fox in the box, get into the right positions. And if we can own him permanently, I think that'd be a bonus as well, with Yates only being on loan. Okay, so before we get on to our predictions for Chesterfield and Middlesbrough, and we'd like to hear yours in now. So if you want to put them in nice and early, we can read them out. Want to give a quick sort of update on what we're doing personally as a group. We've got a running challenge, and that's kind of sort of maybe dumbs it down a little bit, but 3,824 kilometers we're going to be running as a team across the season. The deadline is the end of the season. We wanted to do something for charity this year. That's the one we've chosen. It's for Derby Food for Thought Alliance. They provide food for mainly kids that live in food poverty in and around Derby. A donation of £5 will, without sounding like Soccer Aid, a donation of £5 will feed a child for 3 days. So we've got the link in our bio. We've got the link in our description. Sorry. So if you could donate, we'd be so grateful as well. So yeah, it's a really good cause, and that's why I want to get involved. And also as well, I think Jamie mentioned it last week, we're also up for the Football Content Awards. The deadline for the voting for that is the end of the week. So if you could nominate us and tell them exactly why you like listening, only if you like listening. If you don't like listening, please don't do it. But if you do like listening, then please do let them know. That'd be very much appreciated. So Chesterfield and Middlesbrough. Cal, I want your score prediction and goal scorers.
Do you want to do both, or do you want to do one at a time?
Do both, mate. We haven't got all day.
Oh, so Chesterfield. I will go, just for quickness, I'll go 1-0 win. And I will go, because he's going to change it up, I'm going to go a Dejan Brown goal against Chesterfield. Middlesbrough, I'll go 1-1. We'll get a first point on the board. And my goal scorer will be Nathaniel Mendes-Lang.
Good stuff, Vic.
For both games, I'm going to go 1-1. I think we'll lose to Chesterfield on penalties. I'll be glad to see the back of the cup, to be fair. And then I'll go 1-1 against Borough. I think we'll put a better performance in. We're at home. I think we'll be up for it. So we'll go with a James Collins equaliser.
Good stuff. Adam?
I'll go 1-0 win against Chesterfield. Classic early season cup game. Chesterfield play some of their reserve players. We do the same, and nothing happens until we get a penalty and win 1-0. I think against Borough, I was going to be negative and say a 2-1 Derby loss, but I'll go with a 1-1 draw, be a bit more optimistic. But I think that's a game, if you take a point from, then I'd snap your hand off for a point at this point. Point.
Good stuff. You're right there, mate. It's too hot. It's far too hot for this. We got Lewis Robot who says 1-0 win versus Chesterfield, 3-0 defeat to Borough. Jesus. War Dog says Chesterfield 3, Derby 2. Archie Hames says 2-1 win against Chesterfield. I know it's a Sheffield then. 2-1 win against Chesterfield and 4-1 defeat to Borough. Jim says defeat to Chesterfield, lose 2-1, and we'll beat Middlesbrough 2-1 with Mendes, Lang and Jackson. And Carl Wotton says slightly better this Saturday, 6-0 win. Now that's what we like to hear.
That's a Vic Singh prediction, that is.
That is a Vic Singh prediction. I personally think we'll lose to Chesterfield. I think we'll lose 2-0. And then we'll go out on Saturday and get at least a draw. I think it'll probably 1-1 on Saturday or 2-2. It'll be somewhat dramatic. We'll score a late equaliser anyway, regardless. I'll go with 1-1, and I think it's going to be a last minute. Obviously, it's going to be a set piece, isn't it? Let's not be ridiculous and assume anything else. And I think it's going to be a last minute James Collins bullet header from a corner to salvage our first point of the season. So, thank you so much for listening. Did enjoy. Please do give us a rating. Please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. We really appreciate it. We're really happy to have you here. Vote for us in the FCAs, please. I'm begging you. We really want to go again. It was really fun last year, so it'd be good to go again, especially if we can win something. And please do donate if you can. If you can't donate, don't feel pressured to do it. But if you can, we'd really appreciate it because it's a really good cause. And I think that's all the things I need to say at the end of an episode. It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for listening. Let's hope we're back next week with 3 points in the bag. See you soon.